Is this working? Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah. Good evening. Thank you all for being here tonight to the first Overview Scrutiny meeting. So thank you all. Okay, so just going through now. So good evening. My name is Councillor Sayar Raza, and the Chair of Overview and Scrutiny Committee here at London Borough of Hounslow. It is now 7:02, and so I'd like to welcome you all to this meeting of the committee, the first substantive meeting of Overview and Scrutiny in the year 2022 to 2023 municipal year. I would like to welcome the other members of committee who are here this evening: Councillor Bidoff, Councillor Bowring, Councillor Foote, Councillor Georgie, Councillor Kamran, Councillor Kiani, Councillor Perisotto, Councillor Sharma, and Councillor Tuck. Other members who are in attendance, as well as council officers who will be assisting members throughout the meeting. In addition, I would like to welcome the members of the public, both in Hounslow House and joining us remotely. To turn now to business of the committee, this evening we'll be considering two substantive issues containing within a single item: cabinet priorities and confirming overview and scrutiny work programme for the coming year. We will have a chance to hear from Cabinet and pose questions to Cabinet members about their priorities for the year, and then inform what we have heard. We as a committee can agree our work programme, a draft of which committee members developed in the summer. As a new chair of the committee, I thought it might be helpful to set out a preferred approach to running these meetings effectively. As chair, I will run the meeting and invite guests and members of the committee to speak. Every member of the committee who wishes to speak will have the opportunity to do so. We do, though, have a lot of ground to cover this evening, so I hope contributions will be focused and enable a productive discussion. It should go without saying that members of the committee are all aware of the various roles good scrutiny can play: providing constructive challenge, amplifying the voices of local people, and driving improvement in public services. I am sure we will all follow these principles throughout the year, and I look forward to scrutiny demonstrating the value it can bring both to council and to the wider borough. As we work through the agenda, I tend to use the following procedure. I shall invite guests, the relevant members, or where appropriate, the officer, to introduce the report, and in this case provide individual cabinet members with an opportunity to outline their key priorities. Please limit yourself to no more than 5 minutes per cabinet portfolio. I will invite members of the committee to ask questions of the cabinet. Again, these questions will be limited to 5 minutes per cabinet portfolio. So please be mindful. Fellow members of OSC, that other scrutineers will also want to ask questions to Cabinet. I shall then invite members to express their views as part of the debate on the report. My fellow scrutineers should remember that whilst everyone who wishes to speak will have a chance to do so, in accordance to the council rules of debate, you'll only be allowed to speak once at the discussion stage. If you hear something said by someone else that you dislike or disagree with, you do not have the right to comment after they have spoken or interrupt them. Please say everything you wish to say in your allocated time, which will be also up to 5 minutes each. I shall then speak last and then briefly to sum up the discussion, advise any issues or common ground to note. And to that is the process of dealing with our main agenda item this evening. If we keep to that, we can assure that we'll all have a chance to be heard. Agenda number 1. Apologies for absence and declarations of interest. I have not had any apologies, or are there any that I'm unaware of? Some, thank you. And any from the committee? No? Okay, so we do have more than 4 members in the committee, so this meeting will continue. And is there any declarations of interest in the room? No. Okay, thank you. So just moving to agenda item number 2. So this is minutes. So we have 2 sets of minutes for approval on the agenda today. We have minutes of the 15th of March 2022, and we do also have minutes of 7th of July 2022. I wasn't intending to go through each set separately unless members have an issue of accuracy to raise on a particular set of minutes. If so, then please let me know. Otherwise, we will agree the minutes as collective now. Given that only Councillor Bidoff, Councillor Foot, and Councillor Georgie and Councillor Tuck were committee members in 2021-2022, I will look to you to confirm that March's minutes are accurate reflection of the discussion.
I move acceptance.
Thank you.
I have a comment, if I may, please.
Yes, please.
Thank you. I've raised this before with Paul. On page 9, there is the second paragraph. The first one is part of another one, I think. I don't think it accurately reflects what actually happened. We had a presentation from Celia Golden, and my response was to praise her department and to ask her if she had the right number of people. The right number of people and the right people. And that's not reflected here. I think those are totally subjects that the scrutiny members should raise, and it's not reflected here. It just says, I'm not interested in having my name there. My name appears an awful lot. It isn't about ego. It is about reflecting the discussion and the fact that I thought that her department was doing the most incredible work and was under-resourced, and I wanted to explore those 2 subjects, which are items for scrutiny to explore, and they're not raised here in the minutes. So I would like to suggest that they are. I have provided some draft wording. It doesn't have to be my draft wording. But I think it should say something like, Councillor Bidoff, if you want to use my name, praised the work of the team, saying that its work was unsung, yet important. I used the word unsung. And the team hugely effective. Councillor Bidoff asked how big the team was and if it had enough and the right people in it.
So thank you, Councillor Bidoff. So for what I can understand from that, it was literally a response to a question you asked.
That was my question.
Yeah. So because there was no, I mean, I don't see the relevance to be fair here. I mean, we can certainly have a look at this later on, but because there's no change in decision.
No, it doesn't change the decision, but we're talking about the minutes as a record,
right.
Not whether decisions were made or not. Or
and we do have records online as well through YouTube.
I've had that.
Yeah.
I've had that
right.
rather bland response already,
Sure.
and I'm not happy with it. I do think it's important for the record to note that the department was praised as unsung, and the questions were asked, which are scrutiny questions about whether it had the right people and the right number of people. It's not changing the outcome. I think it's really important to praise the department that is under-resourced. I gather its resources have increased, which might or might not be as a result of this discussion.
I mean, we can
but it's
certainly...
an important point, and I'm not happy with it being looked at afterwards. This is a question for now. It's a record of the minutes.
So we do need to
We're talking about democracy.
So, if I'll just pass it to Rachel. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bidoff. I mean, I've seen the exchange earlier, Paul shared with me about it. I mean, with minutes, yes, in terms of any queries on minutes, it's about accuracy of minutes. So you've presented what you think is not accurate there or what needs to be reflected. But it is to say, and obviously for the chair to, think about this as well, is it's not a verbatim record in that sense. So it's kind of felt that does, it says in response to a question about staffing, and it was within that envelope. So it's kind of how much goes into a minute. If it's just, that's not the purpose of them. That's not what they're
Can I
meant to capture.
ask how it is any less important than the words used in the item before, 2 items before? Councillor Biddulph recalled receiving a useful information pack from somewhere else, not here. How is that point that I'm making about praising an unsung department for its extremely good and important work less important than the fact that I once received an information pack in a previous life?
Well, I mean, I suppose in response to a question about staffing, that does badge
it doesn't say anything about praising an unsung department, which is an incredibly important. We're talking about equalities, diversity and inclusion.
Yes.
It's a very important department in a very important time.
Well, that just from the governance perspective of what a minute captures, that's my view on it. But
in which case, can I raise questions about the importance of me having received an information pack, and can that be changed, or are you not going to change that either? And I really think that it's just digging heels in for the sake of digging heels in. I'm not asking for a major change in policy. I'm just wanting a record to be made of the fact that this is a really important department which was under-resourced. Those are scrutiny points.
And these points will be raised in November as well. So if we just have a look at the works program for November, we are going to be doing a lot of work on EDI. So I do appreciate what you're talking.
We're talking at the moment about the minutes, Chair,
I do appreciate
not
that.
the programme going forward.
100%. I do sort of appreciate that, but we should, and certainly we should sort of move on to.
Does the committee not agree that the department is important and unsung and under-resourced, and was under-resourced? Is that an issue we should talk about?
No, that's not the issue. We're talking about minutes here, and we're talking about issues there. So, like I was saying, in November we'll be sort of looking at that department. I think as regards to the actual minutes, we should just move on here. I do appreciate what you said, and it will be noted. But we do need to move on as we do have a very, very tight schedule as well. And I'm sure we can, and I do appreciate that you don't want to catch up later on, but we can certainly do that and get that sort of rectified.
So Chair, sorry, just say, so the minutes need to be approved now. So it's whether the committee wants to include additional wording or not. But that's in regards of, does that kind of cover it?
Can I just raise a point on that then, please? Because we're asking a committee that, as the chairman has said already, is largely not here. We've only got 3 people from that committee here this evening. So you're asking people who didn't hear the discussion to adjudicate on it.
Well, no, that isn't the issue. Not to spend too much time on this, but it's whether that phrase there couches what you just expressed that you want to be included. I think it does. I'm just saying that it's for the chair, so I'm not a decision maker here, but in terms of points of governance, I think it does do that. So that's
so we need
all
to
I'm saying
approve the minutes, and as long as sure. And then, well, I mean, can we then have a show of hands of approval to the current minutes for March? Yeah. So that is 8 and 2. So yep, the minutes are approved. I'm sorry. Yeah, just put a hands up if you're approving or not approving it. So so as the minute stands, it's been approved. So if we can move on to agenda item number 3. So this is cabinet priorities and agreeing the committee's work programme. So we are considering one substantial item tonight. This is Cabinet's priorities for the coming year and agreeing Cabinet's work programme. This is a good opportunity for the committee to hear the Cabinet's portfolio holders and to understand their areas of focus. A new administration, a new Cabinet, a new leader means there is lots of scope for new priorities and new activity, and look forward to hearing from Cabinet. I know Councillor Sampson is unavailable to attend tonight and sends her apologies to the committee. I am keen that the committee takes what we hear this evening and, if appropriate, revisit our draft work programme, which we'll have the chance to do so once we've had a meaningful conversation with our guests. Oh, apologies. So Councillor Garrywell is not here as well.
Chair, can the minutes of 7th July as well?
So it was both the 7th as well as the 17th. Yeah. Okay. So therefore, as per the process I mentioned previously, I would like to welcome Councillor Rajwant, Leader of the Council, to introduce this item. Once you've finished, Councillor Rajwant, and being mindful that you have no more than 5 minutes, I will give members of the committee 5 minutes to pose any questions they may have too. My fellow scrutineers should remember that this is an opportunity to seek clarification. The chance to discuss the issue more broadly will follow shortly. After that, you can pass the baton onto another member of your Cabinet, and we'll adopt the same approach. Councillor Rajwant, may I ask you to introduce the report? You have up to 5 minutes.
Chair, thank you very much. And thank you to the committee as well for having us on your first formal committee meeting. Unfortunately, Chair, you've pretty much stolen all my thunder. New administration, new scrutiny committee, and a new leader. So there's a lot of opportunity here. I think before I go through my areas of responsibility and priorities, I think it's important to say how much I value as a former scrutineer the relationship between the executive and scrutiny in your role as our critical friend. I want to make sure that we have meaningful conversations that enrich the policies that we're putting forward. And in that vein, you'll see the cabinets here. We've also got the officers here, as well as the cabinet assistants as well, to assist in our discussions going forward. And obviously, I appreciate you've done some work informally around your work program, and you're going to approve that this evening. But the work program is one part of your work. I think there should be an open relationship between scrutiny and the executive, where we can bring things to you as we need to. And we look forward to your work enriching some of the policies that we are proposing. So whilst I appreciate you won't be able to do everything, there is an open relationship there that I want to harness and work closely with you. So I appreciate the time. In terms of my areas, obviously I want to try and keep it focused on your draft work program. You would have seen the slides around my areas within my portfolio. A lot of it is financial based. So unfortunately for you, you do see me at least twice a year on the midterm financial strategy and then the budget. And I'm sorry about that. But those are actually, in the past, those have been really meaningful discussions that we've had, and we've fleshed out a number of issues. And then, I've taken on customer service and digital and ICT as well. And if you've had an opportunity to read the corporate plan, the delivery plan, and then the financial plan that sits alongside that, I hope you'll get a sense of how ambitious we are for the borough. There's the difficulty of the cost of living crisis. Shouldn't dampen our ambition for it. We need to be innovative constantly and looking at different ways of doing things and how we as council can lead the way, but also how we can leverage our partnerships to also deliver that. And that's the vein around a lot of what I will be doing along with cabinet colleagues and how we use digital and ICT to innovate going further. So that's all I'm going to say at this point. I'm happy to flesh out any issues that may exist in questions, if that's all right, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. And now putting it to the committee, we do have 5 minutes on this piece of any clarification that you would like to ask Councillor Rajwant. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, go for it.
Thank you, Councillor Rajawat. Could you tell us a little bit more about the embracing technology without leaving anyone behind? Just general plans of including those who are digitally illiterate. In my short term as a councillor, I've already had interactions with residents who couldn't access digital services that the council provides.
Yeah, and it's a very good point, and it's something that the cabinet are very much aware of. In the same way that you'll pick it up in casework, we also pick it up. So I think the point for me around being digitally fit is having the processes and the technology in place, so that those that are able to access services digitally and use that effectively, so that we free up space and capacity for those that are less able to access. And at the moment, there's that little mix. So a little bit of it is culture change. So it's, I'm notoriously guilty of wanting to make a phone call when I could do something online, and that's a culture change for me. And I think we can say that we're not quite there yet, but we are getting there, and we're prioritizing that. So that there is space freed up for those that need to make a phone call or write a letter or actually come into Hounslow House. They have the space and the ability to get their queries resolved. And that's not about us imposing what we believe. It's about engaging in a constructive way with the community. So, a lot of the focus for the administration is around bringing the council closer to communities, and that's part of that. So if there is a particular cohort or a community that feel it's better to come into Hounslow House or make a phone call, then we need to be able to enable that and give them the capacity to do that. Yeah.
Councillor Bidoff, please.
Thank you, and thank you, Lara, for raising the bulk of the questions that I was going to raise. Can I just add to that point, which is linked to it, which is phone lines, and we must look at resourcing of those, because there are an awful lot of individuals who aren't digital, as you've just said, literate, but also not coming into Hounslow House isn't the answer either. I've seen people being asked to ring a number from Hounslow House, and then they've sat there for 20 minutes, and I've intervened and picked it up as casework, somebody from another ward. So we do need to look at what we're actually providing when we say they can come into Hounslow House. And secondly, things like the noise line isn't always staffed, and we had a problem with that over a busy festival weekend when people can't get through, and that's either because it's not staffed or it hasn't got the capacity to take more lines. So we do need to look at across the board. But could I just ask one more thing about that, which is the digital board that there was, digital strategy board. Does that still exist? It hasn't met for a while. I was on it, you were on it as well. And a couple of meetings were cancelled. I'd just like to know if it's continuing, and if so, when it's next going to meet, because I do think it was an important forum.
So I take your first point, Councillor Bidoff. On the second point, I'm in the process of looking at that digital strategy board in light of the new corporate plan. So I don't have a date yet, but I do want to make sure that something like that continues, so that there's that feedback into it. And I'll come back to you once we've got some firm dates on that. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, please, Councillor Georgie, please do stick to just the question. Yeah.
It was about the digital, but it has been answered. Perhaps just how do we monitor that? Do we have a regime that monitor performance?
So yeah, you're absolutely right, and actually you raised the wider the point around KPIs and performance management. So again, that is all being refreshed. When you have a new corporate plan, you need to look at what sits underneath that in terms of performance management, and that also sits within my portfolio. So that's also a piece of work that is due to report fairly soon, I think. The officers are nodding, so we'll see the first set of stats on that, and it's with a view to not only tracking what's happening in the corporate plan, but also tracking how we're performing month on month as well, so we can follow that data much more closely, and that'll obviously be openly available.
Councillor Tuck, you have 30 seconds.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be quick. Do we have any impact analysis done on when we go digital, what impact this will have on staffing? Whether we'll need more staff or we'll be able to cut some staff and the budget?
So to be very honest, Chair, I don't have that to hand. That is something that I'll want to look at, and I'll work with officers, and I'll come back to scrutiny on that. If that's okay, Councillor Tack.
Thank you, Councillor Rajwant, for that information. Of course, those points will be noted down. If I can now please hand over the baton now to Councillor Dunn.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, committee. It's nice to see you all here tonight, and I'm delighted to be here as part of this new administration as Deputy Leader and also as Cabinet Member for Climate, Environment and Transport Strategy. Some portfolio parts of that portfolio I've held before. Some of it is new to me, although I have worked closely with previous portfolio holders. You can see my responsibilities there on the left-hand side of the slide. So strong focus on the climate emergency, our low carbon neighbourhoods, environment strategy, including air quality, which is very important, transport policy, and a strong focus on active and sustainable travel. In terms of upcoming priority areas of focus, we're lucky because we have our climate emergency action plan. So we following the declaration of climate emergency by the council in 2019, we put together the climate emergency action plan, which was consulted on across the borough, and we now have a plan which we're able to action. So a lot of the actions flow from that, and you know, anyone who hasn't read that or seen it in full, it would be a good idea for you to go and look at that. And we'll be bringing our second annual update on where we're up to in October Cabinet, I believe. So a lot of the actions flow from that. Some of the most important ones are around energy efficiency. Obviously, we need to reduce and eliminate our carbon footprints. And the best way to do this is through reducing the amount of energy that we need to use. So we've already done quite a bit of work on that. We spent almost £19 million so far on the decarbonisation of 33 of our school buildings and another 30 corporate buildings. That's enabled us to remove gas boilers, replace those with air source heat pumps, with solar panels, also reduce energy use by improving the insulation of buildings and other measures to reduce energy use, such as the introduction of LED lighting. So we need to continue that work. We have a large housing stock in the borough, and we need to do a lot of work on that to make it much more energy efficient. So those schools and other public buildings were funded through the public sector decarbonisation scheme. So we're constantly bidding for funds from government in order to be able to carry out these measures. It's not funds that we have sitting available in the council, and we're very lucky. We have got excellent staff who are really good at putting together these bids, and that's how they won us that funding so far. But it can't stop. We're having to continually bid for this money, which is not ideal because we know this work needs to be done. The government knows this work needs to be done. We shouldn't really be having to sit in competition with other boroughs, but that's the way it is. So yeah, next focus is really on that social housing stock across the borough. In terms of obviously this agenda actually cuts across all the work we do across the council. So the next point there about greener Hounslow, planting 20,000 trees, more wildflowers, etc. That obviously cuts across many of the portfolios, parks, streets, highways, etc. But again, you know, we've got a lot of these plans in place, and it's about making sure that we carry out what we've said we'll do, as well as always looking for new ways to do it. Electric vehicle charging, you will know. So because we've already gone out to consultation on this. It was one of our manifesto commitments was to roll out an additional 2,000 electric vehicle charging points. So we've got on with that. The draft consultation is the draft strategy is out for consultation at the moment. Moving on to the next slide. I'm so sorry, I had 2 slides. Low carbon neighbourhoods. So this is a really important piece of work which we're working with the organisation 3CI, which is a national organisation with which several of our officers are very closely involved. That will help us make the business case for investment, private investment into neighbourhoods in terms of what needs doing in order to decarbonise.
Thank you, Councillor Dunn. Thank you very much for that.
Could I finish a
yes,
couple
of
of
course.
points?
Yeah, go for it,
brilliant.
yeah.
So I'll just do it really quickly.
Just
So
very quick.
I know I've
Thank
gone
you.
over time there, so
No
I'm very
problem.
sorry. So just finally, obviously transport is a big part of my portfolio, so I mustn't gloss over it. We've got a lot of work to do there. TfL have just received their funding settlement from government, so we'll be working closely with them to see what is available for the borough and what we can do in terms of implementing that. Our focus is obviously on increasing active travel, walking and cycling, and also improving public transport. And finally, on air quality, which is incredibly important for our borough, we're already out to tender for new air quality monitoring equipment, and hopefully we'll have that soon and be then consulting on where to roll those out across the borough.
Thank you so much, Councillor Dunn. Over to the committee. If I can start firstly with Councillor Foot, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Catherine. Yeah, just one. I welcome your comments about the 20,000 trees. That's been a particular element of my comments over the years. Can I just make sure that the planning committee's policy of replacing every tree taken down due to development is replaced by 2 new ones? Is that included in these numbers, or is it being kept separate to those?
So for, I think the commitment is 20,000 additional trees planted by us. Anything that's required through the planning policy will be provided by developers, so that will be in addition.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Tuck, please. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Again, my question is regarding those trees as well. Will the ward councillors will have the opportunities to suggest some locations, or will it be driven by the officers and cabinet?
I think we'd very much welcome suggestions from ward councillors as to where trees could go. I mean, there's obviously limitations on that, but we'd certainly like to have that information.
I have one more question, if I may.
Sure, go for it.
You mentioned we did improvements on 30 school buildings and corporate buildings by spending 19 million. Have we measured the energy usage before and after and compared those, how much we have saved in terms of energy and carbon footprints?
Yeah, we're absolutely doing that, and I think it's too soon as of yet to know what those savings are, because those improvements have only just gone in. But we do have the measurements, so we will be able to compare with what it was like before.
So will those be made public? Will everyone?
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Councillor Perisotto, please.
Thank you, Councillor Dunn. Apologies, I have not read the autumn cabinet report, but I'll just be curious to learn a little bit more about potential behaviour changes, techniques, options that the council is exploring to help residents improve the effects on climate change.
Yeah, can I come back to you on those? So I think that work's still being done. So with the autumn cabinet, when it says see autumn cabinet, I don't think it means you can see it just yet. So you will be able to see it. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Councillor Biddulph, please.
Thank you. And thanks very much. Just a quick point on the point that Councillor Tack made. Will you be seeking views from ward councillors, or will you be expecting them? There's a slight difference on the location of trees, for example.
I'll discuss with officers and we'll make sure that we are actively seeking
Okay,
views.
thank you, thanks.
Rather than
Okay, and then on my other main points, I'm a bit concerned about an apparent, if not overlap, gap between what you're doing for greening and Councillor Shaheen's work with parks and open spaces. And I say that because I'm totally in favour of wildflowers. I think they're phenomenal. Please, can we have many more of them everywhere? But we have had several tragedies on open spaces where wildflower meadows have been mown down at the wrong time and they haven't grown back. And indeed, TfL's just done that on its own verges, which are supposed to be full of wildflower, not verges, but planted areas. So I'd love to see some more coordination there. I'll be sure that there aren't going to be any slips. It's about contract management, really. I'm just concerned about the effects of them and being mown away. And then the other point, could you say more about where the
Can we just stick to the question, please? We've got other committee
upgraded
members.
air quality equipment is going to
Ever
go?
so quickly, please.
Yeah. Cabinet had more time.
Sorry, was that about where it will be?
Do you know?
We don't have the locations yet.
Okay.
But again, if you have suggestions, I'm happy to take those.
Yes, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Georgie, please.
Thank you, Councillor Catherine Dunn. Thank you for your presentation. One of the questions was about air quality monitoring. Do you know how many we have in the borough? And the second one was about which places they will be placed around schools or any specific areas. But you did answer that you don't know where.
True. However, there will be a focus around schools.
Sure, thank you. And what kind of strategy are we looking to implement in regards to aviation in order to reduce pollution for our borough and for our residents?
So, I mean, obviously, we have limited influence over any aviation policy, but I mean, our policy remains with regards to Heathrow Airport as it has always done. That for I don't know, longer than I've been on the council, that we support a better, not bigger Heathrow. That's not changed.
Thank you, Councillor, and I'll certainly look forward to the EV charging points around London Borough Housing. Absolutely. If I can now pass the baton to Councillor Chowdhury now, please. We will have time. We will have time later on. That's right. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Samir Chowdhury, Cabinet Member for Adults and Health Integration, and my responsibilities you can see on the slides. Adult social care reform, including the charging reform, government mandated cost of care submission. And the biggest thing what we'll be doing next year is development of the market position statement and preparing for a new assurance inspection regime. And I would like to welcome our scrutiny next year to look at it if we are prepared for this inspection and if we're ready. I would like to invite you guys to look at it with myself and the officers if we are fully prepared for the inspection. And health and social care integration, delivery of the health and well-being strategy and underpinning delivery plan, and the population of health management. And I'm happy to answer the questions, but if there is anything you'd like to speak to me outside the meeting, I know I've got to, I'll be meeting soon the chair of social care and scrutiny. I've already promised it that next week we'll definitely catch up. I'm sorry for the delay in that. Any questions, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, put it to the committee.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah, Councillor Bowring, please.
Could you tell us a little bit more about the health and wellbeing strategy?
Health and wellbeing strategy, we're preparing, and it's going to go online, and then we'll be discussing this in Health and Wellbeing Board. And I'm happy to share that with you. And it's gone out for the consultation. Happy to have an outside meeting as well to discuss that with you. Yep. Thank you.
Councillor Kiani.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Samia, for this information. My question was asked, but I can ask another question. Health integration. What is your plan to integrate this into the society? I mean, the residents here. Health integration. How we are going to do that? What is your plan?
I think we're doing a lot with health and social care from not just from one angle, from all the way. If you see, especially our inspection regime, that's going to be for the whole adult and social care, and coming down to the just like not just the care homes and everything, including the public health. And I can go into the details with you. I'm happy to the whole scrutiny. If you guys are one-to-one, like to come to me and speak to me about what our plans are, more priorities, happy for you guys to put your hand up and say, make sure you look into this. So that's the support I'd like to give to you guys. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Chowdhury. There's a lot going in. Of course, part of our work programme is indeed looking into a lot of this as well. So thank you for that. If I can now pass the baton to Councillor Giriwal, please. Shiraj.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Shivraj Grewal, Cabinet Member for Communities and Equalities. My responsibilities are community engagement, community development, community and voluntary sector, resident participation, equal opportunities and inclusion, library, registration, arts, culture, and heritage and community solutions. The thing is that as a Cabinet Member for Communities and Equalities, our EDI strategy is in consultation process at the moment. And once the consultation process is over, I will be briefing the committee on that. As far as heritage is concerned, we have got the Boston Manor Park, which will be opening sometime in November. And most of the work has been done, and it's been done to a very good standard and been restored to its original perspectives. I do not want to go in other parts of the what we call my portfolio, but I will brief you on the community partnership unit, which we have done a lot of work in it. Our new community development team is now very active, getting out and about and engaging with people across the borough. They are organizing regular ward walks and with councillors and community groups to get a better understanding of local communities and the issues that are concerning them. This is supporting a new type of area forms, which, as you all know, which will help us transfer how we work with our local communities. The next round of area forms will be starting in a couple of weeks, and we have been working to turn these into events that have more involvement for our local communities, with ward members playing a clear leadership role. The community partnership unit is continuing to provide vital support for a voluntary sector through the Thriving Communities Fund. Last month, we awarded over £270,000 to 19 local voluntary and community groups for projects that will support young people, carers and families in the borough. Volunteering has always been an important way of people to get more involved in their community, and we continue a voluntary center to help our voluntary and community groups to recruit the volunteers that they need. And finally, the community partnership unit is developing a new thriving community strategy that will focus on how the whole council is putting our communities at the heart of what we do. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, please go ahead.
Brilliant. Thank you, Councillor. So if I can start with Councillor Perisotto, please.
Thank you, Councillor Grewal. I think this question cuts across various cabinet members, but for us to deliver many of the things in your strategy, we need to consider the use of many community spaces. So I'd like to ask where I think there's a community spaces review of our assets going on. I'd like to, maybe it's not the right time, but I'd like to know where we are with that.
To be very honest, I cannot give you an answer on that, but we are working on that. And yeah, okay. Right.
I'll wait until I'll ask it again.
Thank you, Councillor. If I can start with Councillor Tuck.
Thank you, Chair. You mentioned about volunteers, and I remember in one of the area forum meetings, we had concerns about young people, especially from ethnic minority, coming out for volunteering to get included in the community events. What is your plan to bring ethnic minority young people into this?
Equality into the borough, and we are encouraging young people from all backgrounds, not only from ethnic minorities, and we are working on it. And if you want to know something more about that, I can later on send you more information by email. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Bidoff, please.
Thank you. So my concern is really about balance, and I don't understand where your priorities are in terms of funding or staffing. I know that prevent is very important, and radicalisation has got to be dealt with very quickly and stopped if possible. I know also it's a nationwide policy and campaign. But I'm interested to know how much is achieved, if it's possible to measure that, when alongside that, I've got some very worrying cases of homophobic attack, which have been going on for years and we're not solving them, and of racism and of misogyny. So I'm concerned that we're putting an awful lot of attention into one aspect and letting others drift, because we do need to grip homophobic attack. It's not appropriate that we have these views in 2022 or ever.
Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor. The thing is, we are working very closely with all these communities, what you're talking about, and we are working with them, and we are trying to solve all these problems. And what it is, we are taking this attacks and what you're saying very seriously, and we are working with a team to get things resolved in due time. Yeah.
Well, we need to know then who the team is, because I'm unaware. I raise cases and things don't happen.
To be very
So
honest, I'm not aware of any cases you have raised.
maybe not,
Yeah.
but I don't know how to raise them.
Yeah,
Who is the team?
Answer the question.
If you have any cases, please raise it with me, and I will talk to the officers, and we'll sort it out. Yeah.
If I may assist, Councillor Bidoff, that's Councillor Ajmer Garwal's area, community safety. So we can discuss that alongside Councillor Garwal's when we get to hers.
Sorry about that.
Councillor Kiani, please.
Thank you, Chair. And if I may ask a question, it's very good, community solution approach. It's very good on papers, but how we are going to deliver that? What is our strategy on that? How we are going to involve residents and voluntary sector?
Councillor Kiani, what we intend to do is we are in dialogue and we are in communication with the local residents. And as you being a councillor, you're a lead member of your ward, you should be in touch with you and get the feedback to us, and then we process that and we deliver what our strategy is. All right, you're welcome.
May I clarify my point then, just to apologise again?
Ever so
formally?
quickly, please.
Yes, there's a crossover that I'm concerned about, because community safety and equalities are interlinked. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor, and I look forward certainly working with the EDI later on in our work programme as well, so we can sort of really get into the chunks of this, so thank you for that. Now, if I could just call on Councillor Barthow, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the committee. So I'm Cabinet Member for Children, Learning and Employment, and on the left you can see my lead member responsibilities, and obviously the top one is children's social care, because the local authority has a statutory duty to ensure that those children that need to come into care are safe. So obviously that's a massive priority there. And then listed under there is education and schools, learning skills, and also employment strategy and services for residents. So on the right, the 5 priorities. Number 1 is something that we're particularly really excited about. That was one of our manifesto pledges, was to have a youth skills guarantee where we are committing that all young people in the borough from the age of 14 to 25 have a clear pathway, whether that's into education, employment, or training. And the vast majority of young people do know what they want to do. But you will have situations, and this is something that I experienced a few years ago with one of my children, was it's sometimes those that haven't got a clear pathway, it's often not easy to find the information that is there. So what we want to do is to make sure that we have clear pathways, that we create more pathways, and that we absolutely have a really good guarantee for young people. And currently, we're developing what is phase 1 of the youth skills guarantee. So there's an awful lot of work being done into establishing that. And what will happen is sometime in May, we will be able to launch that officially, the phase 1. So that's obviously over the period of this administration. So a really exciting priority, and it means that we can be really truly ambitious for our young people, which of course is hugely important. So I'm just rattling through it really quickly. So number 2 is SEND reform, special educational needs and disabilities. The government is consulting at the moment, or I think it's finished consulting on the green paper, which is about special educational needs for young people. And as you know, we had our inspection last year sometime. I can't remember exactly the date, but the outcome of that was that we need to improve in certain areas, which is obviously really important for us. And the department has now has submitted a written statement of action in terms of how we are going to go and make improvements, so that we make sure that we are providing a really good service for SEND. There's also something in there about the SEND safety valve program. I'm not going to even attempt to explain it here because it's incredibly complicated, but in a nutshell, what it really means is that this is a national picture across the board, is that in terms of our spending on providing education for children with special educational needs and disabilities, that we spend a lot more than what we actually get, and that's a national picture. So this safety valve program is an opportunity for us to access money to be able to address that. But you will hear, I'm sure, quite a lot about that in the next few months. So another piece of government reform is a schools white paper, and that is a set of measures which the government want in terms of improving outcomes for educational attainment of young people. And one of those proposals is for all schools, I believe, to be part of a multi-academy trust by 2030. So those are government reforms that we're having to look at how we respond to that. We are actually in conversation with schools at the moment just to hear what they have to say. We're very lucky in Hounslow that all of our schools are either good or outstanding, and we've got an excellent relationship in terms of the schools within the borough and with us as a local authority. So the next priority is maintaining overall good performance in children's social care. We haven't had an Ofsted inspection, I think, since 2018. Okay, so unfortunately, I think we're probably going to be getting one. So we will be ready, bracing, preparing for that, because obviously that will be a massive commitment. And I think the same goes for inspection of youth offending services. Haven't had one, and again, we will be preparing for that. So the last one is about family hubs, and this is something that the government has kind of invited us to be part of. it is it is a response to the independent review of children's social care in England. As you know, there were some really high-profile, horrific cases that you would have seen on the news, and as a result, there were a number of reviews that took place. One of the proposals is for local authorities to be in a position to develop sort of family hubs, and this is what we will be looking at to do in the borough. Again, it's very sketchy in terms of what they will look like, but that's something that you may well see here in Hounslow. So I think I've probably done my 5 minutes, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Councillor. Again, over to the committee, and first one is Councillor Conlon, please.
Thank you, Councillor Bath. My question is, as you said, you are excited about the youth skills guarantee. What is your plans regarding the provision of youth skills guarantee? Thank you.
Thank you. So I think it's prepare at the moment. So what we're doing currently at the moment is that we are looking at our universal offer to all young people. So earlier on, I gave the example of when I was looking for a placement or, training for my child. I was aware that there are lots of opportunities there, but sometimes they're not easy to access. So we've got to make sure that those pathways are really clear to access. And then once we have, once we've kind of focused on that, we will then be looking at targeting those young people that are not in educational employment or training, and you will have a small amount that are not. And obviously that's not good enough. We don't want that. We want to make sure that we create excellent opportunities for all young people, but we are aware that we will have to target some groups, whether because they're not getting opportunities because they've got SEND or whether they're looked after. But it's really important that we create those opportunities, whether they are working with our business partners or creating opportunities from within the council, which we do anyway, but we may want to look at strengthening those. So it is a long-term plan and a programme, and a really exciting one.
Councillor Bowring.
Regarding the family hubs, so that's a 300 million pound fund from the government, and that's been released to 75 local authorities. Do we know if that equates to 4 million for Hounslow, or if that's going to be different, or is that unclear?
I have no idea what that equates to in money.
So, Councillor, we've been given an indicative figure at the moment that ranges from about 1.7 million to 3.8 million, plus or minus. Sorry. Stephen Forbes, Executive Director for
Are you all right?
Clinging on to the table.
He's not going to have to get up
And
again.
Chair, if I may,
Thank you. You can go.
Councillor, could you comment on the family hub situation, about the involvement of faith groups in the co-design and/or delivery of services?
So it's really early stages at the moment. So we don't know what they are going to look like. I think they'll depend on need. It may be that we have to redesign the way that our front door services will look, but it is quite early because we are also waiting for the government, I suppose, to give us some kind of guidance as to what they want those to look at. So it is early days at the moment, but we will obviously share everything with you with regards to that.
Councillor Georgie, please.
Thank you, Councillor Liba, for the presentation. I have a question in regards to the previous strategy that we gave for you and for the new cabinet member in regards to children services. Have they been implemented and taken in consideration in any of your strategy plans? So we last year, as part of the children scrutiny and overview, we have made some recommendations, and I wanted to know if you have taken that in consideration.
I think we're due to meet with you, aren't you, to discuss those?
Sure.
Yes. Yeah.
All right.
Well, we will look at that, and we will meet with
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah.
Cheers.
And there is actually quite a lot of work that we'll be doing in our work programme as well. Councillor Bidoff, please.
Thank you. I was interested in what you said about children's, you didn't use the word ambitions, you used it in another context, but ambitions for their futures. And it's a long time since I was at school. I don't know what happens at the moment, but what is there in terms of advice for the future, careers or whatever, and for people who don't necessarily want a career and who may never work out what it is, as I haven't in life as a career. And also, I don't know if I was the only person who received representations, but I suspect it was more than one, from the all-party parliamentary group into political literacy. But that is another strand that I think we need to look at, obviously giving a balanced view of political life and whatever else they want to do. But it would be quite good to engage with that group, it seems to me, which might well help a lot of people find careers in becoming a councillor, becoming a social worker, you know, all those sorts of things that have semi-political roles.
Yeah, I still don't know what I want to do either. So maybe that's why I'm sitting here. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It is so patchy, I think, and it has been over the years. I mean, I thought when I was at school, sort of careers advice and sort of options was patchy then, but I think over the years it's kind of pretty much been eroded, hasn't it? So I think that's where our role comes in, but we will be working very closely with all our different educational establishments to make sure that it isn't patchy, that we do, you know, we do have really good kind of advice, information, and young people know where to go. But not only that, but it's important that we create those opportunities as well, because young people have been hit incredibly hard since the pandemic, and you know, opportunities for employment, you know, can feel pretty diminished for some young people. So I think it's really important that we address that. But yeah, whatever sort of, you know, we can do, we will do, and of course we will be listening and working collaboratively on
Thank you.
this.
Thank you, Councillor.
Can I just clarify, is it down to individual schools
we
to
need to
do
move
separate
on.
things? There's just, is it each school does their own thing? Yes, and there isn't a role for the local authority in some, okay.
Thank you, Councillor Bath. And if I can move now to Councillor Lambert, please.
Thank you. Too many complicated things to think of. Yes, I'm Guy Lambert. I'm the lead member for Environment, Highways and Operational Services. The main responsibilities for that are highways maintenance, cleaning of streets, parks and open spaces, waste and recycling, environmental operations and quality, which is a sort of another way of saying what I just said, and also the Lambton 360 company's operational interest. So those are the key things. The areas of focus are street cleansing and fly tipping reduction. And you will remember, I hope, a manifesto pledge that said we're going to reduce fly tipping by 25%. That's the minimum target that I want to get to. But with that fly tipping has been going up, we want to start going down fast. We're carrying out an enforcement review, which is actually related to the fly tipping matter. We introduced in the last administration the Special Waste Service, which has dramatically reduced fly tipping in parts of central Hounslow, and we're moving that out across the borough. Most notably at the moment, it's working in Chiswick High Road, and it's essentially going to work on the high roads where there is a lot of fly tipping, but any other fly tipping hotspots. And the enforcement review. At the moment, we've got 3 or 4 separate teams doing enforcement, and not necessarily in a coordinated way. And we think we can get better bang for buck by getting them to work together better. The pavement pledge, another manifesto commitment. Last time we had the pothole pledge, we pledged £2 million and actually spent £4 million on improving highways, which were already the best in London. And are now obviously somewhat better. The pavement pledge is to deal with those pavements which All of our pavements meet the criteria agreed with the Department for Transport in the PFI deal, which does them. But some of the residents are unhappy with some of them. They're unhappy with because perhaps they're sort of patchy, or perhaps they just don't think that the standards are high enough. So we recognise that, and that the pavement pledge will be developed later in this year. We'll be announcing how that's going to work, and that will go across the borough. And importantly, we will fix the pavements that we're told to by residents. Obviously, there'll be a bit of engagement with that, a bit of prioritisation, but essentially we're asking residents to tell us what to fix. Waste reduction and recycling plan, we've got one in place. We have to put another one in place by the end of September to go to the mayor for him to think about it. That is impacted by the Environment Act 2021, which is now law, even though some of the provisions are not yet clarified. There'll be some sort of statutory instruments, I guess, about those. Reduction and recycling, we made fantastic progress last time on recycling rate. We're looking to carry on with that, in particular with food waste in flats, which we haven't been collecting food waste until the last year or two. And in some flats we still don't. And the trading companies are trading. They're providing very good service, I think, and they're providing quite a lot of social benefit as well. There are still some challenges in making them financially profitable, because part of the point of having trading companies is we want dividends for them, and they've pledged to deliver them, I think, in 2024. And that is obviously particularly challenging at a time when for example, the leisure service has to deal with a highly escalating cost of energy, which is a big input, and it's almost impossible to get chlorine. A lot of local authorities have shut their swimming pools because they can't get chlorine. Chlorine's gone up by about by thousands of % in cost. So that's what I'm focusing on. I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Tuck first, please.
Thank you, Chair. We always keep mentioning reduction in fly tipping. And if I recall, there was a pilot run and it was discussed in one of the borough council as well. Do we have the results of that pilot? What actually happened, whether it reduced fly tipping or...
Yes, it was run. It started off with Kingsley Road in Hounslow, which was absolutely the worst place in Hounslow for fly tipping. If you go down Kingsley Road now, there's virtually none. In fact, often there is none at all. A lot of fines were issued, a lot of education was done, and at which point we started rolling it out to other hotspots, firstly in central Hounslow, and now we're rolling it out to other parts of the borough where we think the priorities are. So one of those certainly is, I've seen them working in Chiswick High Road, where there's quite a lot of fly tipping there. And I don't know what the results of that are yet. It's too early, but we are provisionally seeing quite a big reduction in fly tipping across the borough. But it's too early it's certainly too early to be complacent, and there's still a lot of work to do. Still far too much fly tipping.
Good. Councillor Bidoff, please.
Most of the ward councillors do actually know the hotspots for the fly tipping. So when you are extending that scheme, will you be taking their inputs?
Certainly, I would intend to do that. Yes. So yeah, I'd be delighted to hear from ward councillors who want to ask for that. I ask for it. I'm a ward councillor too, and I ask for it in my ward.
Councillor Biddle first, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Guy, for two things. One is introducing the commercial waste service, which I think is excellent. As you know, the Chiswick Shops Task Force, you expect me to mention that, put it in its manifesto in 2019, I think it was, or whenever it was. And I'm very impressed by the flexible attitude that there is there, that you're saying, yes, you'll do things that the commercial bin collectors won't do, such as move bins of slightly further distance, for example. Obviously, that comes at a price. You've got two people working on a van where the commercial people only have one. I understand that and that importance. I'm just concerned that the cost effect of that will potentially limit the take-up. I'm trying not to focus on it and to sell it as a positive, but I'm just concerned. I'll put that down as a mark. I think it's a good service. I don't want people to be exploited, but there is that difference if you have two people on a van compared with one. And thank you also for the innovative washing service for food waste collection, which is also another really good thing to have introduced. Do I take it from this list here that there's a slight change in organisation in that you are now responsible for streets and parks? I think that was in a separate place before, parks and open spaces.
Yeah, I'm responsible. That was slightly confusing when we started, but because obviously Salman is in charge of parks.
Yes.
He's in charge of making them nice. I'm in charge of
keeping them nice,
of cleaning up after the public.
Okay, that's a really helpful move, I think, because up till now it's been difficult to report and difficult to understand for many people where the responsibility lies.
And there is a plan. I'm not quite sure when it's going to happen to make a sort of single point of contact for reporting, rather than at the moment Fix My Street doesn't cover things that are on the street.
And the other gap, if I may suggest,
can we just have a question, please, Councillor Biddle?
Yes, would you be able to fill this other gap in cleaning, which is on Hounslow housing land, where cleanup is done by a different team again, but it is fly tipping like anywhere else?
For discussion between me and Councillor Sampson. And,
okay, great. Okay,
thank you. Koalo stroke green space do the grounds maintenance, but they don't do the
yes,
the cleaning.
There's a constant gap and a problem with that. That would be great. And when do we expect to see the cleanup after collections that was pledged by the leader when he was very, very new? Because
we
the
do have
filth
other
on the
committee.
streets today was
We do have
awful.
others that want to put in a question. Councillor Kiani, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Guy. I have a question, regarding street cleansing. You are saying that reform street cleansing frequency. First of all, in my ward, and I believe in most of the other wards, there are weeds, grass, they are grown up, and they're grown up that high, which have sent the photographs many, many times. And the residents are very, very edgy about it, and they say don't come and knock on our doors, and I've already sent that to the leader here as well. So what frequency we are talking about, or are we going to do anything about it?
Well, I think it's not. I think the issue for weeds, if that's what your sort of key issue is not frequency. It's doing it at all.
Street cleaning is as well, isn't it?
I mean, as I'm sure you know, we made a commitment 3 years ago to stop using poison on weeds because these things are never 100% clear, but it's believed to kill insects, and it's possibly carcinogenic to people, and we're almost unique in having made that commitment. Frankly, we are dissatisfied with the service that we're getting from our contractor, and we're working very hard with our contractor to get a better service, because I agree with you, the state of weeds and street cleaning is not where we want it to be. So we're working very actively to get that under control. It is that they have underestimated the problem and under-resourced. They are upping their resource, and it won't be solved in a minute, but we're determined that it will be resolved. But both from weeds and other aspects of street cleaning.
Thank you, councillors. Councillor Foot, very quick, please.
Thanks, Guy. I'm concerned about the fact that, for instance, in Hamworth Ward, 2/3 of our wards are roads are TfL roads. In order to get them cleaned, how do we report TfL roads for cleaning? Are they being processed through your department, or are we having to contact London Council?
That they're being processed via. There's difficulty in that in some TfL roads it's hard for us to get access. It's not safe to go on the to send barrow walkers out into the middle of the A316. So a lot of the cleaning is done when there's road closures. What is different this time is TfL have changed their maintenance contractors. We have a much better relationship with them. I say we, this is mainly Hams and Highways, have a much better relationship with their maintenance contractors. And in the last couple of months, they've actually been out on a lot of roads. You can see it on the A4. It's an awful lot cleaner than it's been in the past. It's not perfect, but the issue is we will take responsibility for it. But if it's in a dangerous place, we have to wait for the road to be closed or a lane to be closed for it to be addressed.
Thank you.
So one of the problems is the feeder roads in Hamworth, the feeder roads that go up because responsibility stops halfway down, and you could draw a line across where. You know.
Again, I do understand that in fact, I had a report from Hams and Highways only last week on all the major roads in the boroughs except the A316.
We
the
must
A312,
move on.
The
Thank
A4,
you.
The A406, etc. But not the A3. I don't know why.
Thank you,
Presumably
councillors.
they haven't had closures there yet.
Thank you so much, both you councillors. We do need to move on, I'm afraid. So if I can now move the baton to Councillor Bruce, please.
Thank you very much. I'm conscious of the time. I know we've been here a long time already, so I'll try and be as quick as I can. I'm going to jump around these points a little bit, I'm afraid, just because there's one I want to end on with my one. So the first one that I want to talk about is the delivering the new council homes. That was one of our pledges, by building 1,000 new council homes and buying a further 1,000. We want this to fit in with the neighbourhoods that people already live in, to contribute successfully to those neighbourhoods, but that are fit for purpose and suitable for our borough's residents to move in. It's incredibly important. I don't need to spell out to councillors the problem with housing in this borough for individuals, the expense and how difficult it is in some cases to find. This is an incredibly important thing that we are going to deliver over the next 4 years. Second one is about the policies that we implement and development management arrangements that we have. We are currently going through the local plan review. The inspector is looking at that, and we've got in front of Cabinet next week, and as long as Cabinet agree, in front of Borough Council a couple of weeks after that, the next stage agreement to go to consult on the next stage of that, looking at the inspection of our local plan reviews next year, the open public inspection of that next year. That's what we're looking at in terms of that major bit of policies. But there's also the town centre management plans that we've done some work in Feltham. We've done some work in all our town centre, all 4 of our major town centres. But we started with Feltham, and we'll be looking at Hounslow, Brentford and Chiswick in the coming months, and engaging with local councillors from those wards to have input in that, to see how we can support our local people in the development of those plans and bringing those forward later on. Part of this is about links in with other people's portfolios, so that engagement with the community. Part of the policies and looking at the arrangements is about talking to people about what works and what doesn't. Last night, I met with the Hounslow, the Residents Forum, Association Forum, sorry, particularly looking at planning. This is outside of their normal meetings, and I think it went very well. Some of them agreed with me that it went very well. Some of them said that it didn't go so well because we didn't focus on the things that they want to do. So I promised then that we would come back and look at specifically that development management arrangements and people's concern about how planning works in very in generic terms, but also about enforcement as well. So I'm happy. My point here is we are happy to engage with people, looking at how we can make these things work best for people. I think that's incredibly important. And I'll say again, I've said already a few times, and I'll say again publicly, I'm happy to engage with any groups or associations on the development of these in the appropriate way, because most of these go out to consultation, a formal consultation, and that is where we want to see, and we will respond. That's where we want to see people's views, and we will respond to that. Links really well with Councillor Bath talking about skills and employment. There is a proper link over there about creating those jobs. Building in Hounslow isn't just about building for building's sake. It is about delivering homes, obviously, but it's also about delivering jobs. It's about creating space for businesses to grow and to thrive. And that is part of what we are pledging here to do. There's a lot of information on that in the local plan reviews about how we're going to be doing that, or our plan to do that, as well as in the town centre management plans, town centre plans. Lastly, I mean, those three are important, but the top one for me is the reason I'm incredibly excited, the main reason I should say I'm incredibly excited about this portfolio, delivering what's here in quotation marks, livable places, links fully in with our prosperity in place, prosperity in place, prosperity in people. Which one was it? I can't remember. Prosperity in people strategy that we introduced at the beginning of this year, but following through into not just looking at our major town centres, not just looking at how regeneration is about buildings, but how regeneration can really transform the lives of individuals and communities street by street. That is incredibly important here. It's about those local parades. It's about people's community. It's about that fence that's been knocked down for the last 3 years and no one's put it up again. It's about the grass verges that aren't being properly maintained. It links in with all other cabinet members' priorities as well. And it's how we can get out into that community and talk to all councillors, but all residents that want to engage with us and see what we can do. You know, in a sense, I would, in very generic terms, it's a bit like a shopping list. You know, tell me 20 things that we can do. I might be able to do 4 of them, 5 of them, 6 of them. I can't promise everything, but it is about what's most important to people. And that having a livable place, a place where people are proud of, that want to live in, want to stay in the borough. I grew up here and I've stayed here. I'm proud of where I live and I'm proud of this borough. That's not the case, and we know that. We're honest about it. That's not the case for everybody, but we want it to be. I want people to move here because there are jobs, there are nice places to live, there are good schools, which there are, good and outstanding schools to be, and it's about creating that sense of community. And I think regeneration, I want regeneration to be seen in that context, not just about the cranes outside, but about how we can develop that in people's local area, you know, and on a very micro level. Outside of your house, if weeds are growing, it's annoying, I know. Outside of your house, if something's broken, it's irritating, absolutely. So what can we do about that? And it's going to take time. I'm not going to be able to do it next week. That's hopefully, as long as the leader will have me. Well, I'll be here for 4 years. We'll see. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Bruce. So questions, firstly, Councillor Perisotto, please.
Well, you know my question already.
Sorry, community. I wrote it down and I was going to include it anyway. Yes, you asked about community asset review. Absolutely. We are currently undertaking a community asset review from two prongs, basically. One, looking at the state of our building, the physical state of our building, which is, I think, pretty much been done. You know, is it in great condition? Is it falling down? Does it need a lick of paint and it'll be fine? Those kind of things. So looking at them from a building perspective. The other is the community solutions area, looking and talking, and this is obviously a bigger piece of work, what those buildings, what's valuable to the communities and the groups and the associations that use them. You know, is it going to that place or is it just having a place to go? And those are different things, aren't they? And there's lots of examples of a variety of different things that people have already told us, and it's going to take a bit of time to work out. I'm hopeful that that review will be able to be seen by councillors and everybody in the autumn. I can't promise that, but that's the idea, that people can see, here's all the stuff we've got, here's the state it's in, here's what people say about it, and then what can we do about it? What's important? Do we need to keep this as it is and keep going with that? Do we need to regenerate this in some way, a lick of paint, and other people can use that? Do we knock this one down and sell or use in a different way or get the community involved? And there are loads of examples already in Hounslow and elsewhere in the country and in London about how all those things can have worked. There's some really good examples that one of the teams has shown me already, just some ideas about different things, and without even knowing the review, just what could happen depending on the outcome. And that's really exciting. So that will be something that's, you know, coming forward. So, you know, yes, we're looking at it. It will come in front of you and you'll be able to see what we're saying and how you can input to that as well.
Thank you, Councillor Bowring.
It's just a quick question on skilled local jobs for local people. How does that intersect with competitive tendering and the fact that employers will more often than not be third parties like developers?
Yeah, I mean, are you talking about jobs working within the construction industry, or are you talking about businesses that are coming and using buildings for their business?
Construction.
Construction. So absolutely, you know, they are out there, but the process of planning includes Section 106 and SIL that provides those opportunities for apprenticeships or training opportunities for people in our borough, and ways that we can access that. So that's part of the planning process that, as a member of planning committee, hopefully you'll be able to push on. I mean, what I would encourage you to do is push as hard to developers as you can. I certainly do that. It's one of the things I talk about to them when I meet them now, is that, great, you want to build this, fine, you're showing me these plans, they look great. What's in it for my residents, the residents of this borough? How can you make this as green, using that broad term, as possible? You know, is this going to be carbon neutral, or reducing carbon to build? And is it going to be as close to carbon neutral as possible to live in for our residents? What's the efficiency and all of those kind of things? So members of the planning committee, I would push hard on those things, because I encourage you to do so.
And Councillor Cameron, please.
Thank you, Councillor Bruce. My question is in terms of HMO. During the campaign, Hanworth Park residents, they mention a lot, they are facing so many issues regarding the HMO. So how can you deal with this situation?
Absolutely. So very importantly, go and say this wide and loud. We are currently in the middle of a consultation on Article 4 direction for HMOs borough-wide. There is one in Hanworth. Is it Hanworth or Hanworth Village or Hanworth Park?
Hanworth has been there. It's
One of the wards has got it, and I can't remember which one it is. One of the Hanworth.
The rest of the constituency, I think, actually is live.
Correct. So one of the Hanworths has it in place. It's Article 4 direction at the moment. I can't remember which one it is. Hanworth, thank you. The rest of the borough is under consultation now. It's a year process, because at any point during that year, people can input what they think about this, including the owners of HMO, saying this is nonsense, please don't do this, to the Secretary of State, and it can be looked at and called in. Once that year has elapsed, I think it's the end of July next year. Once that year has elapsed, and if it hasn't been called in by that point, then it becomes a thing that we can do. And what that does is restrict the redevelopment of homes, 3 to 6 people, for HMO use. And that's really important. Doesn't mean they can't happen. It means that they need to get planning permission for them. So HMOs is an important part, shared housing is an important part of our housing stock. But where there is a proliferation, and where it reduces the balance is wrong in local areas, and people have genuine concerns about how that works in their area, they're able to object to it, where currently they can't. So that's what we're doing on that. The other bit on Article 4 direction is about E-class commercial premises being easily converted into housing as well, which is a different problem and more located in town centres and parades. But again, it's something we're looking at, and that will be something that I will bring and we will put forward for consultation, hopefully by the end of this year. So it's looking at both of those elements. One live now, one hopefully in November, December.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you. I'm afraid that's the end with that, Councillor Bruce. Thank you.
Ask me afterwards.
And if I can then pass now to Councillor Shaheen, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. So, unlike Tom, I didn't grow up in Hounslow. I moved to Hounslow in 2014, and partly because I found it to be such a beautiful green borough, and I'm glad that I stayed long enough to join you just a few short weeks ago as a new cabinet member for Parking, Parks and Leisure, so I can work all the harder to maintain its green spaces and indeed enhance and improve Hounslow's green spaces. As part of that, there's a number of large initiatives that we have in play and coming forward. So firstly, we have a £5.4 million investment in our parks, which will see improved signage and new master plans for major parks, including the continuation of Feltham, Dukes Meadows, Bedfont Lakes and Boston Manor. their master plans to continuation, and also the addition of Hanworth Park and Hounslow Heath, and the final actions to complete on Waterman's Park. These revised and new plans will come forward in the autumn. We're also, and I think this is a very important piece of work, we're reforging our relationship with the Friends of Parks groups as part of this administration's pledge to be a listening council. We want to create more opportunity for partnering between the council and our valued friends groups who have a wealth of knowledge and expertise and passion for their parks between them. And we want to start this engagement process with the Friends Summit later this year. This will be followed, we hope, with a new and innovative partnering agreement. One of the other projects that we're working on surrounds allotments. The allotment strategy, which was developed under the previous administration, is in full implementation, but I want to go much further. Our programme is ambitious for Hounslow, and I want to do as part of that something that's quite unique. We're currently auditing unused and unloved land across Hounslow with a view to taking acres of it into use as allotment space. This will not only drive down our waiting lists for allotments, but provide an opportunity for people across the borough to grow their own food in the wake of the cost of living crisis. With so many flats across the borough and so many people lacking access to a garden, this green project will give people from all walks of life land that they can call their own. What's more, I want to look at opportunities to pair these new allotment spaces we will be able to open up with local schools to give urban kids the opportunity to learn where their food comes from and understand the importance of healthy living. I think this feeds neatly into what a piece of work also that we've had ongoing since the previous administration, which is the green and blue infrastructure strategy, which we'll be bringing to Cabinet in autumn and has already been out for consultation. And this will look overall at turning 45% of the borough's infrastructure green. And it will see a focus, among other things, on rewilding, restoring historic landscapes and riverside routes. As discussed, of course, by Councillor Dunn earlier, this will also include a large tree planting programme, 20,000 trees by 2026, 7,500 of those trees to be in 2022-23. And this will see more woodlands, copses and orchard creation. And we'll also deliver more urban greening across the borough, including the encouragement of new parks and recreation spaces, green walls and other urban greening initiatives. So I look forward to bringing that green and blue infrastructure strategy to Cabinet in autumn and bringing some of that work forward. In terms of leisure, we have the Health in All Areas programme that we're bringing forward, a 12-month programme that's focused on improving physical activity across the borough, working with community development to understand the community needs and support required to get more people more active. And I think this is very important because our obesity and our diabetes rates are higher than most other places. And I think it's very important that we work with residents where they are, not just in our leisure facilities, but where residents are, and understand what their needs are and how we can help them get active and get healthy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Put it to the committee. Councillor Bidoff there.
Thank you. An awful lot there that I'd love to talk about, but I'm just going to talk about allotments, if I may, in that I went to an allotments workshop, I think it was a day or the best part of a day, a couple of years ago, well, before the pandemic, and I haven't, you say it's now in full implementation, but I don't see it in my ward, I'm afraid, where I've got allotments that have been left to rack and ruin. There are 2 people working them, and the rest of the space is left, and it's always weeds, and the 2 people who are working them, who need them to be cleared around them, won't have anybody around, because the last time somebody came, they couldn't tell the difference between weeds and not green gooseberries, and the gooseberries were removed. It needs some better management, and you really need to look at allotments. I think there's a chance to look at allotments and see where they have not been allocated. We totally support more of them, but at the moment they're not being implemented. And the other thing is managing them and making water available. I know we've got to be careful about water, and making sure that if there is water, it's a tap that turns off, because there was an example in Chiswick of a tap that was left on for months and months and months.
Thank you, Councillor Bidoff. Everything you say is at the top of my agenda and of paramount importance to me. I think I absolutely agree. You're completely right that there are issues which have arisen around allotments in the borough, which have been a hangover from the pandemic, at which point on the one hand, allotment waiting lists are rather large and they've been frozen, but on the other hand, there are allotment spaces that have been that are not necessarily being fully utilized, fully used, fully loved, and not reallocated to people on the waiting list. Now that is now currently right at this moment as we speak being worked on. This very month. All the unused allotment spaces, if say for example they may be rented out, but they might not be being fully utilized by the person they're leased to, they're all being audited right now with a view to use it or lose it policy. Or anyone who's not using their allotment as they should be will be written to with the option to either put it fully back into use or give it up, because we have a huge waiting list for allotments, and we have people who would bite our hand off to take those over and love those. And I think, you know, as part of this, we're looking at the security around allotments. Thank you for the point on water. Do raise it with me. I will raise it with Green Space 360 team, particularly around taps. Any specific issues you have, I'm very happy to take up with ward councillors.
And look at staffing, I hope.
Yeah.
Councillor Perisotto, please.
Thank you. Do have to ask about parking. I think we all have heard from residents about need for more parking spaces. So I'd just like to hear from you about finding that balance between parking spaces and, of course, the climate crisis that we have.
Yeah, I think that is a very important point that you raise. I think obviously as a borough, what our strategy overall is to try to encourage the reduction in car uses and car journeys, and indeed in over subscription of people who are using our parking spaces. That being said, of course, we have a growing population in the borough, and we have people who want parking spaces, and it can lead to tensions, of course, with residents. And I think it's very important we work with communities to understand where their needs are. It's a very important part of the planning process as well, and it's an important part of our new strategies going forward. For example, with Catherine, who outlined the EV charge point strategy. Of course, we need to look at where the need is for parking spaces to remain for conventional vehicles as well. So I think we absolutely have to think about that. We have to review our parking strategy in general, but we can't lose sight of the fact that even though we are a borough which is trying to encourage fewer car journeys, people are still using cars. So we have to recognise that.
Councillor Tuck, please.
Thank you, Chair. Our leisure centres were taken over by Lambton 360 soon after the pandemic. Can you tell us, like, have they started functioning at full strength? And have we started making profit in Lambton 360, or is it still early time?
I think, as Guy previously pointed to, he talked about the plan for the Lambton companies overall to make profit. But what I would say is they are fully functional, our leisure centres, and they are loved now. By all the resident feedback I'm hearing is that ever since Fusion was taken out of the contract and it went over to Lambton Leisure, our sports facilities, our leisure facilities are well loved by the people. I've visited many of them myself. And I've seen people actively in them, using the gym facilities, using the swimming facilities. We're keen to use our leisure facilities to the fullest extent to improve the health of people in this borough.
Thank you, Councillor Shaheen. We now, and thank you all, cabinet members, for being here. But we do now just need to move on and discuss the report of what we have heard. So we've heard a lot of information from Cabinet. So may I remind you that you Cabinet members, everyone who wishes to speak will have a chance to do so, but may I also ask you to focus your comments on the recommendations asked of us on page 12 of your reports. That is to consider and comment on Cabinet priorities. We will all have 5 minutes, and it is alphabetical. And if I can just start firstly with Councillor Bidoff, please.
Chair, I'm a great proponent of not going alphabetically because it always puts one person first and one person last. So can I ask for a reversal maybe? Or starting in the middle?
I'm more than happy for Councillor Tack.
Well, that puts me in sport. No comments at this moment.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's great. Can I have? I'll mix it around a bit. So if I can have Councillor Kamran, please.
Sorry, Chair, what did you ask?
Yeah. So anything that we've just heard from Cabinet. So of course we do have a work program. If there is some sort of recommendation or something you want us to look at on our work program.
No.
No. Thank you.
Sorry, Chair, could you, I know you just clarified, but could you clarify again what you're asking of the committee? I
So
wasn't quite.
we do have a work program. So we've just heard everything that Cabinet has sort of mentioned, and we've got the reports in your pack as well. So we did do a report in summer. It was sort of a fluid report, not set in stone, but is there any change that the committee would like us to look into, or we just continue with the work program?
You're referring to the priorities we decided in the July meeting?
Yeah.
And
If that's
whether
changed.
I think I agree with the work plan. I mean, it looks fine, and I think I totally agree with it. And if there's any changes, we can suggest during the time, whenever there is time. So we can suggest as a councillor, and then we can discuss with the relevant cabinet member to integrate that within their work program, if that is possible.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Perisotto? Yeah.
No comments.
Thank you. Yeah, happy with that. Councillor Foot? Anything?
Coming to me, yeah, I think it's an idea. I always forget that. Yeah, I think it's fair to say that there's an awful lot been said, but what we do have is room within that to throughout this year to return to some items and in fact to look at items that come up during the course of the year. So I think, you know, none of this is cast in concrete, not to be moved. And so that's where I think we stand in regards to this evening and our way forward.
So you're happy with everything so far?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And Councillor Sharma, please.
I'm happy with everything so far.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Councillor Georgie?
Thank you, Chair. No, for now, I have no recommendation in regards to the cabinet priorities. Perhaps for Councillor Shaheen, if you can take in consideration more with the leisure, I think so, youngsters over 11, if that can be introduced somehow, allowed to use off-peak time to use the utilities for the gym. Just a little suggestion. But I'm very happy with the recommendations for now.
Yeah, we're very happy to look at that. If you could, please do send me an email. So I've got that in front of me and we can have a further chat about it.
Thank you. Councillor Bowring?
I'd like to comment that I think the Cabinet's priorities for the coming year are fantastic. Keep going.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. Councillor Bidoff, please.
Thank you. Two cabinet members aren't here, so I wondered if we could have them at a future meeting so we can ask them questions that we would have asked this evening. I might even get some of them right. Secondly, I think I've got quite a few questions for nearly everybody. So could we have an agreement that we could send them to you and have them answered differently and perhaps tabled at another scrutiny meeting? And I'd like to support what Richard said, which is that we would like to have a return visit at some point after you've had a chance to put something into practice and found difficulties or not. And you wouldn't expect me to endorse the proposal?
Yeah, absolutely, Councillor Bidoff. Just you mentioned some other hate crimes, and I think that's really important. Obviously, Councillor Garrell, very happy to come here again. On those specifics, obviously, there's a lot of partnership working with the police. Yeah, we know that they're struggling with their funding as well, and that provides difficulties. But I think what I would say is we've got a very good relationship with the Borough Commander. And Councillor Garrell regularly meets with the Borough Commander. So if there are specific issues in terms of casework that you found haven't been responded to in the way that we would expect, perhaps ping either Councillor Agarwal, myself, or Mandy an email so that we can pick that up as part of our regular meetings. Of course, the benefit at the moment is with the new commissioner coming in, part of the new commissioner's priority is rebuilding that trust in the police as well, and we want to have our voice heard in that quite clearly.
Thank you. It's more a question of how do people raise these difficult issues without them appearing to be put in the too difficult pile and lost, because that's where these cases have gone. Thanks. Thanks.
Thank you, councillors. I'll be sort of passing this now to Councillor Foot to propose a motion in response to the recommendations to consider comments on cabinet priorities. Over to Councillor Foot.
Yeah, I'd like to propose a motion that we have taken into account everything that's been said by members of the cabinet and members here, and that we move forward with it as we go through the year. But this evening, a vote of thanks to cabinet members to coming to us and being open and followed the rules as well when we wanted brevity.
I'll second that, Chair.
Second that. Yeah, we will second that. Thank you for that recommendation. Okay, so firstly, thank you so much, Cabinet, for your time this evening. We now have a chance for the committee to consider how your presentation and the discussion that flowed from it may have brought into focus other areas we want to consider in our work programme. You are welcome to stay as we discuss this, but if you prefer, you may leave us.
Chair, if you don't mind, we've got another meeting, so
Sure.
if we may.
Yeah, no problem at all. Thank you. Thank you all again. Thank you. So thanks to them. Obviously, a good work programme is not agreed once and set in stone. So there will always be opportunities to revise what comes to the committee. However, given that we've just heard, are there areas of our work programme that need amending? We must be aware, however, that we cannot simply add to the work programme without removing other items. So prioritisation is important, and I do, of course, open it to the committee members here.
Chair, I've heard
Councillor
nothing.
Bowen, yep.
I've heard nothing that would that would make me want to divert away from our existing plan.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Any others? Councillor Biddulph, yeah.
I agree with that.
Oh, wonderful, thank you.
And I also agree with that,
Thank you, Councillor.
You don't agree?
Yeah,
I do.
Yeah,
No.
I do agree.
You do, thank you, Councillor.
There's one question on the TBCs, the to be confirmed. Were they meant to be confirmed by now?
Oh, the item,
The
is this in May?
Okay, no, but like, they are still to be confirmed. So are we confirming that they will be on the agenda in April and May now?
It will be not on the agenda, yes. I think there was some work that we were waiting for to come back before we can confirm that. But yes, that will be still there for me.
Okay. Yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
I also agree.
Thank you. Thank you. Is that all in agreement to the work programme for the next 1 year?
Yeah, agreed.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, again, with the flexibility that we all have as we move forward.
Yeah.
But noting that if we put something on, we've got to take something off.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the really good thing about it is that we've heard about the priorities today. We've sort of discussed a lot of information previously in summer, and I think we've got a really good strategy, certainly for this year, for the overviewing scrutiny. And these are what our residents want. This is sort of the priority that they do need. So I think it's great. Something I would like to, just because we've got a bit of time, but I would sort of just want all the committee members here to have a look at, and it was something to do with ambulances, ambulance times. I'm sure you sort of heard quite a lot of information on the news that ambulance times have been a little bit slower than normal, and as a result, it can even cause sort of fatalities. I am going to ever so quickly give you a very small story of a resident, no names. So this is where somebody had a stroke at work. The ambulance got called. Because there wasn't a criteria, it took them about an hour to get to that person. After they assessed, they took them to the hospital where they waited for 4 hours, given a test drug, and the deterioration of that person just went worse and worse. They then, after consultation, probably about 4 to 5 hours later on, decided to do surgery. And that person, tragically, after surgery, after 2 or 3 days, actually passed away. What came off of that was the priorities from consultation and doctors, that the ambulance service should have been there quicker to assess the situation and get that person into the proper medical care that was needed. So, um, so I'll put it to you, the committee members, if we do want to sort of look into this, we can certainly, I'm sure, fit it somewhere, or indeed have it as a short item somewhere in our work program. Yeah. Councillor Cameron.
Yeah, Councillor Chair, I agree with you. I personally faced this one.
Right.
And when the pandemic happened in 2020, and my husband, I have a COVID and difficulty in breathing, and my husband called the ambulance, and 45 minutes we wait, and then the ambulance arrived.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Councillor Bowring, please.
Chair, in terms of how important this issue is, I 100% agree. It's a absolute vital issue. But I do have a slight concern on this, because I think there's quite limited sort of control and power over what the council can do about this. Because obviously, it's not something that really falls under the council authority. So not to say that we shouldn't look into it, shouldn't be a short item, but I would have questions about how much of our time is it worth, considering there's not much the council can do, even if we come up with a load of fantastic suggestions.
Oh, this is why we put it forward to everyone here.
I mean, we do have responsibility in terms of the joint healthcare link with Richmond.
Can you turn your mic on, please, Richard? Otherwise it won't be.
Yeah, we do have joint with healthcare with Richmond, as well as Hounslow joined together. Whether that covers ambulances, I'm not sure, but there certainly is. That's not the only concern. I think that some of the other concerns is the reduction in doctors manning their surgeries during the day. I mean, my doctor's surgery has been unmanned for nearly a week now. So the only connection I can make is on a telephone call that rings him at home, which is not acceptable. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know where the powers of that board start and finish and how we can access it. It might be that perhaps we can have a look at what access we can make and whether that would be the appropriate body.
And there is a lot of work in our sort of work program this year, especially in sort of March, April time, even in November, where we are looking at sort of the healthcare trusts and bits and pieces there. Okay, I will pass to Councillor Bidoff, please.
Thank you. I was just going to make that point. Firstly, I agree with Dan. I'm not sure, sorry, Councillor Baring, I'm not sure how we can change, but we could ask the London Ambulance Service to come to one of our meetings potentially. I don't know if that's the case, if they would come to a borough, because they cover the whole of London, obviously. But does it fit into items that are already on the agenda? We've got Hounslow Richmond Community Health Trust in November, and we've got health system, including pharmacists, opticians and GPs in April.
Yes.
So is it slottable in? Do we need to move those items, the April one, forward and swap it with the Healthcare Trust? In a way, we're revisiting a discussion we had earlier, which led to us putting health on the agenda.
Perfect.
So it seems that it's there already.
And I think there is quite a lot of work from cabinet member to sort of get some sort of information. I do believe by November we will have more information as a committee, so we can certainly share that information and see where ambulance services do fit there. Perfect. Councillor Kiani, please.
Yeah, that's what, why, please, that, delivery of health and well-being strategy. Does it, we need to discuss that, because the GP surgeries, as mentioned by Richard, means we have in Hounslow, you can't get an appointment for 15 days. I tried it myself, you can't get an appointment. So we need to look into that. That's why I asked Councillor Chowdhury. So we need to write to her to put this into plan. So then in April or November, so we will have a proper answers from her. So what is her plan, how she is going to tackle that? Because surgeries are not manned, and you ring for 1 hour and then they'll come up and say we don't have any appointment, ring tomorrow. If it is emergency, or they say, or go to hospital. So that is the reason which we raised it before. So I think this will come under this, delivery of health and well-being strategy. So we need to ask her. That's why I was going to ask, and then she said, email me. So I'm going to email her.
That's perfect. Yeah.
I'm actually meeting Samia in the next couple of days.
Yeah.
To be discussing this.
That's fine. And if you let us know, so we can meet her then.
Councillor Georgie.
Maybe we can have as guests CCG. We can invite some leads from the CCG, and then we can take.
Sorry, going after you.
Thank you, Chair. Of course, we can invite representatives from Hounslow Richmond Community Healthcare Trust. We'll get those in November. We can also bring people in for April's wider healthcare system conversation. I was just saying to the chair as well, it might be possible just in terms of ambulance, or waits for ambulances, we could ask the London Ambulance Trust if they can provide a report for the committee at the very least. Even if they don't have to, even if we can't find time in the agenda for them to attend, they can at least submit some material to you.
I think I just made that point.
Oh, right, okay, fair enough. Yeah,
Thank you. Could I was going to say something about one of the things that ambulances might well say, and I don't know if there's a role for us in this, is that a lot of people ring ambulances incorrectly, and they waste a lot of time triaging or not triaging, or even responding to calls that are wastes of time. If there are things that boroughs can do to reduce that, then that would be useful to know, whether it's publicity, whether it's through pharmacists or whatever it is. Then it would be useful if we could do something to help them. But I'm not sure what else we can do. And I hope you haven't finished the discussion on the work programme, because I haven't been asked my question yet.
I was just going to come to you, if you could please, Councillor Bidoff.
So what I'd like to see is a list of the work that the panels are doing. We haven't got that here, and we should be overseeing that work as well. If it could just be added to the list. And at some point, if we could have some input, I don't want to take anybody's job away from them as chair, but I know, for example, that with housing and environment, one of the subjects that is being looked at, there are several case studies in my ward, and there will be case studies in everyone's ward, which could contribute to the discussion. And if we could be pulled into being asked for those, it would be really helpful. I'm not asking you to do extra work. You could ask us to give you the work, give our work to you, if you like. Yeah, I just saw that you had canvassed for case studies on Facebook, I think it was. You put something out, and it was quite useful to ask us as well.
So do you mean active participation or?
Yes, in some cases, absolutely. I've got one resident who is desperate to present that story to that panel, desperate, but it could be on paper, but I think some people would like to appear in person, and if they could come from across the borough, Chiswick not excluded, as it were.
Yeah, we'll certainly have a look at that, of course, 100%. But is there? Yeah,
I'm
sorry,
happy to just
Councillor
give
Perez. Yeah,
an update as well on my panel. I met with Stephen Forbes and Councillor Bath today. We're leaning towards the topic of unaccompanied asylum seekers under our care, and just generally supporting them in the path to secure immigration status, but also generally the scope of the outcomes within education and other things that the council has overview of. And yeah, I'm that's not fully 100% agreed yet, because I want to speak to the members of my panel first and get their views. So everyone is welcome to share their ideas about it.
Okay, I thought one of the subjects we'd agreed was that it was going to be about maintenance programs, repairs of housing. We were going to look at those and housing associations, which Richard put on the list as well. I do think it's. Oh, that's yours. I'm so sorry. Yep. I've got the wrong person again. Yep, sorry.
I've already spoken to Sue on that, so we met on Teams, and then we will be, sorry, Chair.
Yeah, no, I was
without
going to
asking
say
what
it's
is
Councillor
Oh,
Kiani
yeah.
and
So,
Samson, so
we-
they're engaging with that.
Yeah, so. No, not yet, no.
So is that, I mean, that's a priority, isn't it, really?
And yes, so I'm sure that that'll be all sort of done, but we're in this committee at the moment, so let's just.
My point should have been directed at you, Councillor Kiani. Sorry about that, but you've understood. Yeah, yeah.
I met with Sue, and then we're going to discuss this. And my plan is that, what we have, prior to our meeting, we'll have a 30 minutes prior to our meeting, we'll sit together and discuss things, and then we'll go into the formal meeting. So this is my plan, So we'll do that,
Can I just pass to Paul, who's just going to make a
Simply to say, of course, each of those panels will meet in the next month or so. So when the committee comes back in November, there'll be an agenda item on an update from the panels. Yeah.
And I
They
think
just haven't met yet, because it's the first day of September.
my wrongly directed question is just amplifying the fact that we need a list of who's doing what.
And we'll have the committee will have that for November as well.
Brilliant. Is there anything else that anyone wants to suggest or talk about? Brilliant. Okay. Well, we then sort of move on to the agenda item number 4, which is urgent business. Is there any sort of urgent business with the committee? No. Thank you. Thank you so much. So yeah. Oh, yeah. Who's that?
Don't have AOB.
No.
Yes, what I wondered was, I know we shouldn't always look back, but it is useful, and the Scrutiny Committee is supposed to. I think we should have a report as a standing item always for scrutiny on corporate complaints and the Ombudsman's decisions. Just to be brought to the committee, it's an important thing that scrutiny should be scrutinising.
Yes, go.
Audit and Governance receive a report on complaints already, so more than happy to pop that on the shared Teams drive, so you all got access to that if you don't access it through the agenda packs already.
Well, we need a reminder then, I think, because it's not something that I would do automatically, and I don't think everybody would do it automatically. It was on the agenda of a much earlier committee, and it just struck me that it was something that could just stand on our agenda always. We should just have an overview of what's happening in terms of ombudsman complaints, numbers, a tracking list. We haven't got a tracking list either, and we did ask for that. So something that reminds us that this aspect of the council's work continues elsewhere.
That's point noted, Councillor. Definitely. But yes, is there any other business?
Just to say, tracking list.
So thank you, thank you all very much for being here tonight and contributing tonight to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. And just to remind you that we will be next meeting on Tuesday, the 8th of November, and that is the end of the meeting.
Thank you, Chair.